For 13 years straight, this car rental company lost money. And then they put that failure in every headline. And somehow, that's the moment they stopped going bankrupt. Avis wasn't new to this. They'd been in business for 17 years. But by 1962, they were quietly drowning. 13 consecutive years of losses. $3.2 million gone in a single year. They held only 11% market share against Hertz's 61%. So, in a last-ditch effort to save the company, Avis made a radical choice. They admitted defeat. They launched an ad campaign that said, "We're number 2. Their own employees hated it. 50% of consumers who saw the ads in testing literally read it as, "Don't rent from us." They ran the ads anyway. And within a year, Avis posted its first profit in over a decade. This campaign didn't just save a company, it invented a playbook that challenger brands are still copying today. This is the story of the diabolical strategy that saved Avis from bankruptcy. Let's go back to December 17th, 1946. A former Army Air Corps pilot named Warren Avis had a brilliant idea. He noticed that Hertz and National, the two dominant car rental companies at the time, had all their locations downtown. But where were business travelers arriving? Airports. So Avis rental cars set up shop at airports. And it worked. For a while. Through the 1950s, Avis expanded real fast. Franchise locations across the US, international growth, real momentum. But momentum has a ceiling when you're chasing a competitor with an enormous head start, established relationships with every major travel agency in America, and a fleet that made yours look like a used car lot. Hertz held 61% of the US car rental market. Avis had only 11%. Avis's fleet, around 7,500 cars, was dwarfed by Hertz's operation. Hertz had the brand prestige, the travel agency relationships, and the advertising budget to match, spending 5 times what Avis did. Avis suffered 13 consecutive years of losses, not a single profitable year in over a decade. In 1962 alone, Avis bled $3.2 million. The company was purchased by a New York investment bank, which needed a turnaround fast. So Avis brought in a new president, a maverick executive named Robert Townsend. Townsend wasn't interested in pretending the situation was fine. He was painfully clear-eyed about it. Avis couldn't outspend Hertz, couldn't outsize them, couldn't undercut them on price. Every metric where brands compete, Avis lost. So Townsend knew that in order to save Avis, he'd have to try something radical. Townsend called Bill Bernbach, founder of the ad agency Doyle Dane Bernbach. Bernbach was the man who convinced America to buy a small, ugly German car by running ads that literally said it was small and ugly. The Volkswagen Think Small campaign had already turned the advertising world upside down in 1959. Bernbach wasn't just good. He was the best creative mind in the business. So Townsend asked him, "How can we achieve $5 worth of effect for every dollar we spend?" Bernbach promised to get Avis results, but only if they ran whatever ad the agency recommended. Townsend agreed. And then he did something almost unheard of in advertising history. He issued an internal memo sent to both Avis staff and DDB that stated, in plain language, Avis will not approve, disapprove, or try to improve ads. DDB will submit only those ads it truly recommends. Full creative freedom. No client edits, no second-guessing the agency's judgment. Townsend was handing the entire fate of his company to an ad agency. No veto, no safety net, no second opinion. If DDB got it wrong, there was no fallback. For a company one bad year away from collapse, that wasn't confidence. It was desperation dressed up as boldness. And DDB knew the weight of what they'd just been handed. The DDB account team sat down with Townsend and started asking basic questions. Does Avis have newer cars than Hertz? No. More locations? No. Cheaper rates? No. Is there anything different? Pause. Townsend thought for a moment and then said, well, we try harder. And those 3 words changed everything. When you're in second place, you have to try harder, or you disappear. Paula Green was one of the rare female copywriters working at a senior level in the 1960s, in an industry that largely didn't make room for women. So when Townsend said, we try harder, she didn't just hear a tagline, she heard her own life. Later, she'd say,
"We try harder" is somewhat the story of my life.
Green built the entire campaign around that truth, and she made a decision that was, at the time, genuinely radical. The ads would open by stating, plainly, that Avis is number 2. Right there in the headline, Avis is only number 2 in rent-a-cars. This broke every rule in the book. The dominant advertising logic of the era was simple. Lead with your strengths, bury your weaknesses, and project confidence even when you have none. What DDB was doing was the exact opposite, and the industry thought they'd lost their minds. For the campaign to succeed, "We try harder" had to be more than just a slogan. Avis needed to deliver on that promise operationally. So Avis committed to concrete service details: clean cars, full tanks of gas, working windshield wipers, clean ashtrays, courteous agents. And Townsend didn't stop there. He restructured Avis's operations from the ground up. New training programs for rental agents, tighter fleet maintenance, quality checks on every car before it went out. The advertising couldn't be a bluff. If a customer showed up and found a dirty car with an empty tank, the whole thing collapsed. So Townsend made sure they never did. Helmut Krohn, DDB's legendary art director, made sure the ads looked the part too. While Hertz ran slick, polished, confident imagery, Avis's ads were intentionally straightforward, because that was the point. They weren't trying to impress anyone. They were trying to be believed. But then the test results came back, and this is where it almost fell apart. Before launch, Bernbach did what any responsible agency does. He submitted the campaign for consumer testing. Researchers came back to report that 50% of the people thought that number 2 meant not as good as. In virtually any other boardroom in America, that finding would have killed the campaign on the spot. You don't spend limited ad dollars telling half your audience you're worse than the competition. But Bernbach asked, what about the other 50%? That one question is why this campaign exists. The other 50% got it. They understood that being number 2 with the hunger to prove something was actually a reason to choose Avis, not a reason to avoid them. There's a psychology behind why this worked. When a brand admits a weakness, something unexpected happens. The audience starts trusting everything else they say. Because if they're willing to tell you what they're bad at, why would they lie about what they're good at? Avis had turned honesty into credibility. And there was a second layer. A dominant market leader has no real reason to try hard. They've already won. But a hungry number 2, they need you. They'll work for you. Avis wasn't just admitting defeat. They were making a case that their motivation to serve you was greater than Hertz's could ever be. This is why Bernbach bet that the other 50%, the ones who responded positively to the ad, would be more motivated, more loyal, and more likely to actually change their rental behavior. But first, they had to convince the people actually running the rental counters. Avis's franchise owners and rental agents were furious about the campaign. Of course, being told you're number 2 didn't feel like a marketing strategy. It felt like a humiliation. These were people interacting with customers every day, being passed over for Hertz, and now corporate was going to remind everyone of that? Out loud? In national ads? Townsend spent months doing something CEOs rarely do. He got on planes, visited 30 cities, sat in rooms with rental agents and franchisees, and explained the strategy in person, not through a memo, not through a press release, face to face. We try harder would only work if the people saying it believed it. Townsend forced the organization to mean it. The company had done everything it could do to be ready. Now all that was left was to find out if the world was ready too. 1963. The campaign launches. Print first. The first ad's headline reads, "Avis is only number 2 in rent-a-cars, so why go with us?" That's the whole opener. Leading with the weakness, right in the headline. Consumers rewarded this honesty with something that money usually can't buy. They started paying attention. Avis's first year running the campaign, the company turned a profit for the first time in over a decade. 13 years of consecutive losses, and now $1.2 million in the black. Car rental volume jumped 28% in the first 12 months. Revenue climbed from $25 million in 1962 to $74 million in 1965. Avis had tripled its market share, from 11% to 34%. Hertz's market share dropped from 61% to 49%. The gap that had been 50 points wide was now 13 points, and closing fast. Hertz executives, by their own accounts, were terrified. Internal projections showed that without intervention, Avis would surpass them entirely by 1968. So in 1966, after 3 years of watching their market share bleed, Hertz finally responded. They launched a direct counter-campaign and came out swinging. For years, Avis has been telling you Hertz is number 1. Now we're going to tell you why. Number 2 says he tries harder. Then who? It was a solid counter, and it marked exactly the moment that Bernbach knew the original strategy had peaked. Once the market leader starts defending their position directly, the underdog narrative loses its power. You can't position against someone who's finally paying attention. DDB and Avis quietly shifted the campaign's center of gravity, from emphasizing the number 2 status to emphasizing the specific service excellence that trying harder had always been about. The core promise stayed. The competitive framing softened. Avis aired a "We Try Harder" commercial in 1977, and it was a hit.
Excuse me, but I understand you reserved an Avis car in Buffalo. Well, not only is your car going to be there, but even now Avis is checking the engine, tires, even the ashtrays. Nobody beats our car care program. So relax. Avis wants you to enjoy your trip in the air and on the ground.
The campaign ran for 50 years. That's more than just an advertisement. That's a company's identity. And the rest of the advertising world had been watching very closely. David Ogilvy, who built one of the other great advertising empires of the 20th century, looked at what Avis and DDB had done and called it diabolical positioning, meaning deviously, almost unfairly brilliant. Ad Age would later rank the campaign as number 10 on its list of the 100 greatest advertising campaigns of all time. Harvard Business School developed case studies on it. Marketing textbooks still use it. And virtually every challenger brand that has tried to position itself against a dominant competitor, Pepsi versus Coke, Virgin versus the major airlines, Apple's 1984, owes something to Avis and DDB. That's the Avis story. If you enjoyed this, subscribe and check out our next episode. A clothing brand that spends $20 million on a 30-second ad for khaki pants. And somehow, buried inside that ad, a full year before anyone had heard of The Matrix, is the exact same visual tech that would make that film iconic.